Ready to
Hip
go.
hop.
Hey,
How
Wendy.
are you? Man, it's good to see
Doing
you.
good.
It's been a long ass time.
Yeah, I agree. I
The
agree.
last time I saw you was at Harvard. You came and you spoke at
Yeah, yeah,
IBK thing. That was amazing. You killed
yeah.
it.
Yeah, that was a great experience. Just being up in the area, being around the kids and stuff. I love that.
Yes. Yeah, me
Yeah,
too. For me, that's the most rewarding thing that I get to do. It's my
yeah,
favorite thing that I get to do.
I agree. Me too.
Yeah.
Just working with someone new and helping them through
Yeah.
the
Just
way.
letting them know like it's all gonna be okay.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Yeah, because that's what's really needed. A lot of times,
Yes.
it's just like those figures or executives or managers that was just reinsurance because I think that confidence is
Yes.
big because artists will get, they get to a zone where it's hard to come back because they might have took too long. They might have, you know, wasn't confident. Stuff changed around them, so having that reinsurance is always great.
It is good, and I
Hmm.
think that sometimes what the next generation doesn't realize because they read our bios and they know who we worked with, but
Hmm.
they forget that when we started with them, they weren't famous yet. Like,
Nah,
they
they
were just
wasn't.
regular people
Yeah,
like them, you know?
100%. Yeah.
And then they look at us like, "Oh my god, you worked with this person, you worked with that person." It's like, "Yeah, but they were nobody."
Nobody.
Like, "That's
Yeah.
my boy."
Yeah, yeah. No, it's definitely way different. I think dealing with somebody with that
Yes.
dynamic, like starting with them and seeing it grow, being at a J show where it was like 15 people there. I remember one
Yes,
time and we just like
yes,
walked straight through the
and he
crowd
was
and
wearing
got
a
on
Hawaiian
stage.
shirt.
Yeah, he got on
Yes,
stage, performed, and left. And with the same energy, the same performance and stuff, and seeing the first real big show where it was like a lot of energy, like, wow, this might be something. Seeing those
yeah,
moments all the way through for people like him and Kanye and other artists and stuff is definitely the reason why I feel I do it.
exactly.
Hmm.
So, I really kinda just, like, started in without introducing you or anything, so I'm gonna let you
Hmm.
introduce yourself. Tell us who you are.
Okay. Shucks, where should I start at the beginning? I guess.
Let's
My
start at the
name,
beginning, hip-hop.
yeah, my real name is Kiambo Joshua, but basically I ain't gonna say professionally, but yeah, I guess you could say professionally
But
known as hip
professionally,
hop.
you're known as
Professionally known as hip hop. Yep.
you're a
Yeah.
brand.
Yep. Yeah. So that came about through basically through Dame Dash. Dame Dash gave me
Oh,
that name.
really? I didn't
Hmm.
know that.
Yep. He gave me that name when I was still in high school. And before I started working at Roc-A-Fella, I used to be around him through Cameron and a couple other rappers who I knew growing up as a kid. And through that, I always had something new, something off the radio. I was always asking him questions. So he kind of noticed my insight for hip hop. And he was like, I'm going to call you hip hop. And my first name was too, he was adamant on getting me a nickname, first of all. So he was like, I'm got to get you a nickname, so because he didn't want to say Kiambo all the time.
Kiambo.
So yeah, he's like, we gotta get you a nickname. We gotta get you a nickname. It's already a KJ. It's already this. He was scratching off names and
That's
stuff.
funny. He had a
And
list.
yeah, he was like hip hop,
I
hip
love
hop. We
Dave.
call you hip hop because you hip hop, you everything hip hop.
You
Always
are
hip hop.
hip-hop.
Hip hop stuff. So it's like I was already that when he said it, but it made me embrace it even more. So it was kind of like, heck, I didn't want to not know nothing about hip hop. I didn't want nobody, I didn't want KRS One coming up checking me. I didn't want, I
Right.
didn't want, people to feel away. So I wanted to respect it in that way. And I think that's the way I kind of carried everything from that point on. It was always like a certain level of just being hip hop,
Yes.
the, you know, the culture and all of that. So the name was just like, not to say obvious, but it was like, just more
Obvious.
of a title for
Yes.
who I was. Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And why the 78? What's the key to the 78?
Oh, that's exactly when I was born.
Wow, I just felt really old.
Yeah.
Ah,
Yeah.
wow.
I was
Okay.
born in 78. And it's definitely other meanings as I started to get deeper into hip hop. And when it started, obviously it wasn't
Yeah,
that day, but that's one of the last years of its original format before
yeah.
'79. Then the music came, and then being born in Harlem, where I was, it was like right in the middle of it. Like things was happening technically when I was born and stuff. Like I was conceived
It was
and
happening around
basically,
you.
yeah, I was born 9 months after the New York blackout.
Oh,
So,
wow.
so if it wasn't for the blackout, I wouldn't be born because my mother,
That's amazing.
she lived in the Virgin Islands, and that she worked for Pan Am, and that stopped her from going back. And then when she finally went back, she realized she was pregnant, and then she moved
That's
back
amazing.
moved back to New York, and that's when she had me in New York.
Very cool.
Yeah, so that's
Very
significant.
cool.
Being there for that point, the timeline, it just felt like almost like a calling. Basically, it just felt
Yeah,
like
for
I was
real.
supposed to do this, and just based on who my brother was, where I was born, who my friends was, like all of these things just felt organic. I didn't try real hard. I didn't like call a bunch of labels and try to really do it. I wasn't studying no A&R. I remember when Dame asked me, when Dame told me, because I started doing radio first, like
I
just
remember that.
college radio with Ray Ray. I started doing that first, and then the A&R stuff came because he knew I knew all the information. He knew I knew about
Right.
music and the stuff like that. So he mentioned it to me, but I didn't know what it was really. And the only thing he said was like, A&R, like Clark Kent and Dante Ross. He just threw them names out there. He said like Clark Kent and
Right.
Dante Ross. And I'm like,
Just like them.
yeah, I heard those names before.
Okay.
So I didn't know them personally. I knew Clark because he came by a couple times. But at that point, he was kind of like out of A&R, more producing and DJing and stuff again.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it wasn't like a clear path. And I remember when I switched to it, it might not have been more than a couple days, and then I got a call from you to be on to come to
The
Kuma,
panel.
then to
Yeah,
come to Chicago for the panel, and that was like
exactly.
I just started handling A&R duties at that time, so it was
I
like
I didn't know that. I actually called you because you were the radio guy at
yeah,
Roc-A-Fella.
yeah, I just switched over because me and D was both radio guys at the time. So in the
Mm,
directory, I remember I was as a college radio in the directory, like in those things. But then
yes.
right after that, I was switching to A&R, and I was like, oh, I could meet these producers. I could meet Traxter and No ID and stuff. Because at that point, I didn't have like a large um Rolodex at the time,
Right,
So it
right.
wasn't like I was just starting. I really knew one producer, and that was Buck Wow, and that was it. And I just knew
What a
him.
great producer to know, though.
Yeah,
He
for sure,
he
for
and Lord
sure.
Finesse were awesome. They were, like, very early on my meet list too. I met both of them
Yeah,
pretty early.
that's how
All of
Lil
Chicken
Finesse
and
is kind of
Crazy.
like my real. Well, I fell in love with hip hop
Same.
with like Lil Finesse. That's like the first tape I bought with my money. Like, okay,
That's so cool.
I'm going to 125th Street, and and I'm asking the guy, what should I buy? And he gave me an option. He's like, hey, you can get this Candyman or you can get this Lord Finesse.
Lord
I was
Finesse
like,
all day.
the Black Album with these two guys, and this one right here, this guy like he playing Twister. He had like dots and stuff. It was like
Yeah,
I was like, let me get this one right here. It just feels more thing, and I feel like that was my
that's
path.
so cool.
I kind of
Yes,
went from there, and from that point on, I just knew people. I was in the proximity of a lot of those guys, so
exactly.
I'm listening to Buck Wild as a DJ, and somebody, oh, I know Buck Wild, that's my cousin, and I'm like, oh yeah, I want to meet him. And next thing you know, I meet him, and I'm going to his house and
And he's just cool. He's
seeing
just a
him make beats.
cool
Super
motherfucker.
cool. Yeah, he was that way
Yeah,
from back then. Like always was a collector of stuff. One of the first person I seen with like shelves of records and VCR tapes and sneakers, just the whole thing. He always been like
yeah.
that guy and stuff.
The whole
So that was my
lifestyle.
introduction. Yep. Yeah. So between
I
that
love
and
that.
then and I met Alchemist around that time, a little after, and from there on, it kind of, the Chicago thing really threw me in their game
I
because it was
love
like
that.
it was an album away. We was in between albums. I think Reasonable Doubt might have just came out, was about to come out. So that was already done. My only A&R duties on that was gathering information. I was doing admin before I knew what it was. So I started
Right.
off as A&R admin just by default, just by
Yeah. The hardest
looking at
job, actually.
just looking at. I remember going through credits and using process of elimination to find out what was their publishing company. I was like, okay,
Right.
he
I'll
produced that.
find it.
This name comes up 3 times. Every time he's on the record, it says this. So I
So
think that's him.
therefore, that must be him. Exactly. That's so funny.
So it was like that type of stuff. So then I get an information like, okay, here's Clark Kid, here's this guy information, here's premiere information. This is how it reads. So I did that. And then, the sequencing, the mastering, the whole, you know, putting the records behind each other and seeing how,
Yeah.
all of that was like up to me on Reasonable Doubt. But everything else, I didn't have nothing. I was just around for like a couple sessions. But I did all of the dirty work. I guess you could say the end work where it's like real, because I never had to do that again, which is interesting. Because after that, Lenny and G started working with me, and they started doing that part of it.
They started doing that part. Yeah.
Yeah, because I was in from day one now as a picking beats, finding producers. So I was doing more
Yeah.
of that, and then they will come in and do basically what I did for the other album. Take all the records, go to mastering, and make sure we got the finished version and stuff.
Yeah.
So it
And
became
that's
a
really important. Like, the paperwork is important, the mixing and mastering is
yes.
important.
Yep. And
What are
just
you what
learning it at that
are you
time.
passionate about in
Huh?
that process? In that process, what are you most passionate about?
Um,
Do you still like making records?
yeah, definitely do. Definitely do. It went away, came back, it took some, yeah,
Interesting.
yeah. Cause I think it's the newer artists. It's helping them find their sound, helping them develop what they're trying to do, accomplish what they might have in their mind. So I usually like artists who have something they want to do, and
Right.
then I could get on board with them. Like
Right.
with Wayne, it
You
was
can
like,
help them perfect it.
yeah, Wayne was like, I want to be the greatest MC. And I'm like,
Okay, a little
okay,
more direction, please.
yeah. But I get it. I see what's his bar and what he was important to him, basically.
Right.
So now I know, okay, cool. You need to prove yourself on a couple fronts. You need to rap with other rappers. You need to get on other kind of beats. We need to do all these things that he embraced. And, I'm sure he's happy with the outcome. What I mean, it's just that he's in
I
a
think we all
conversation.
are.
Yeah, he's in the conversation, and that's all you can ask
Yeah.
is, because I don't think it's not as
Yes.
definitive. And from what he was before that to where it was like when I met him, he was like right around Go DJ. It was like right around
Right.
that album, the first Carter and stuff, and that's when you really started to hear him more as a rapper
As a
that,
rapper.
that
Yeah.
could potentially do that. So at that time, I knew the history he had, and I knew what I could do, and I felt it was perfect for each other because he hasn't worked with other producers. He haven't spread out to New York, to other areas beyond the South. And that's where I was best at. So it was like I was doing things. He didn't have too much connections because he was in the Cash Money world for most of his life. So
Correct.
it wasn't like he had a few artist relationships, and that was like maybe like Nelly and Jewels. That was like, that he really embraced, and they did something for him because he's a real genuine person, like as far as, where everything comes from. So it's just him maybe not knowing things and not being in circles because of the way he was brought up. But
Exactly.
and that was me. I was the opposite. I had to go out there and meet everybody and
Yeah,
find
you were in
producers on
every
my
circle.
own
Yeah.
and stuff like that. So it was like, and at that point, I already went through a lot of the J records. So I had all the connections. I had all the people I worked with who he considered to be the greatest. So it was like, hey, I guess I know. I guess I have some tips for you that you could use and stuff like
Right.
that.
Right.
So I like that part of it where I could see that working with Ti early, working with Wayne during that point. obviously the Ye and Jay and all the artists on Roc-A-Fella. It was just helping them develop their sound, the names, the first couple albums, and getting them to the point where it could just be maintenances. You know what I mean? It could just be like
Right.
fixing what it is and
Tweak.
not, yeah, just tweaking what it is and doing a better version of what we created, hopefully. You know what I mean? And really taking it to the next level. So that's kind of like, that part has always been the part to me, like the early album. Like I can't do albums late. I can't like rescue an album. It's like
No,
from early day one, like, okay, cool. What are we trying to accomplish? And really getting that going and then delivering on that is what's,
I
you
love
know,
that.
yeah, because at a major
So
label, it's no what you call it, no real direction in that way. You know, it's just like, hey, just make a record, you know. So
make a
that's why,
record and just bring it to us. Yeah.
yeah.
So what makes a great artist? And I'm going to ask you this twofold, like on the
Mhm.
creative side and then on the business side. What makes
Right.
a great artist creatively?
Um, I think it's that fine line of filling the void, but also being adaptable, relatable. You know what I mean? To where you don't like it's a void there, but you're not too different. You know, it's some,
Right.
you know, you're doing something that's, because like if you look at hip hop, there's not many roles. There are not many characters. It's like, okay, you could be from a certain city and that could be you. You could be that guy from Pittsburgh that rap about weed because somebody from LA already raps about weed. Somebody from Texas already raps about weed. Somebody from DC. You know what I mean? So it's like you got to have something that's, you know, familiar, but also new to where it's like, okay, I
Mm,
have a new point of view, but I'm still dressed like this guy. I'm still in this, you know, I'm still in this point of view, but I might just be, I'm still in this sort of category, but a little different, like not from that place, or a little younger version of it. Kind of like where people will look at young Jeezy when he came out. He was a whole new version of something. You know what I'm
yeah.
saying? That we didn't
Yeah.
see before. And I think that's important because then you can start to write your own story. Because now it's like, okay, you created a character that hasn't been done before. Because
Right.
the other way is just versions of versions and somebody that can make good songs and fit into different lanes at different times. And they could be creative, and there's nothing wrong with that. You know, that they probably would be around longer than a lot of the other people because of their ability to adapt. But I like the ones that people are kind of trying to adapt to. The ones
Right.
that because they found themselves or they have this one unique thing that makes them stands out. Now you see a bunch of other people trying to find that lane and trying to do that, stuff like that. So it's really just trying to find what makes them unique, but the same to where you can have a entry, because you can't, you want to be able to get in, like say with Kanye, he had an entry level with backpack rappers, with being a producer. A
Yes.
producer rapper was a thing that had a stigma that kind of put you into the underground, put you into backpack
Yes.
world. And what he did was that he embraced that early, but what he had different about them was he still was ambitious as a commercial artist. He still had commercial aspirations that didn't go nowhere. So it wasn't like, okay, I produce and I want to be creditable. So I don't mind working with Mos Def and Talib and these people and making good beats in this world because that's always gonna be a good part of my resume. But I know where I'm trying to go. I'm not trying to stay here. So he had a bigger
Exactly.
picture. He knew what he wanted to do on that front. So it was like, it was really, we used to compare it to like, or I did, was like a hip hop Tupac or a good version of, you know what I'm saying? Like the other type
Yeah.
of side of it where it's coming from a hip hop place, but not a street place. You know what I'm saying? And
Right.
it wasn't, hip hop wasn't even really the thing because he's not like a hip hop head sort of person. He's just not street. So the fact that he's not street, It
but
wasn't
he's
other
also
lanes.
lyrical. Like, he
Yeah.
embraced lyrics. He was
Mhm.
always surrounded by guys like Rhymefest. You know
Right,
what I mean?
exactly.
Like,
Yep.
he respected the culture, he
Mhm.
respected the lyrical prowess.
Yes, yep, mhm.
But he was also very commercial, which back then, I'm kind of trying to put this in context because today, like, rap is pop, right? It's
Yes, it
very
is.
commercial.
Mhm.
But back then, when you went commercial, you were like sort of stigmatized by the underground, like, oh, you're a sellout, like
No, for
you're
sure.
commercial. And he never was stigmatized. Like,
No,
he made it cool to be commercial and
mhm.
mainstream and pop before
Right.
anybody.
100%, yeah, because and that's was the dynamic we was fighting against, but
Yeah.
it was wide open because I remember when he figured it out, it was like it was around a Tupac situation. It was the Tupac documentary, and we was watching the Resurrection, the MTV one, the one that
Hmm.
the one that he did all the vocals for. We went to see it together in the movie theater, and I remember when he left, he said, "I figured it out. I could just be myself."
Who knew?
And and then the next day he came to the studio and he was like, "Yeah, I'm gonna be myself, college dropout, you know what I'm saying?" And he had the whole
He
plan
knew.
of that, of like, I'm gonna embrace being a college dropout. I'm gonna
I love
embrace
that.
being this person who do this and still like this, but still a little bit. Because if he didn't, he would have kind of took how you say it, he would have took a template that was already there. Probably
Yeah,
something closer to what underground rappers was, and
yes,
he might have had a ceiling with that. And that's what made
yeah,
it hard for us to get a deal in the first place because they looked at him as that. They looked at him like, okay, this
correct,
is like our professor. This is like Diamond D. This is
right,
like, those type of guys. And they wasn't looking at it like, okay, who he really was and his ambition and those things wasn't really accounted for at that time.
right,
But being around him, it was like, and seeing the songs he was making, it was like, okay, these is just good songs. Like songwriting on a songwriting level, that's where the Tupac comparison came from. It wasn't a lyrical thing. It was a witty thing. It was a connective thing, emotional thing that I thought was harder to do than anything to connect
right,
emotionally, and he was doing that with like demo records, like Hey Mama and Jesus Walks and stuff was connecting emotionally. And I was like, shucks, I know artists who would die for those records right now to be a part
yes,
of not just their single part of their catalog, just anywhere
yeah,
put these in my catalog. And that's where it was kind of like, okay, this could be something. And and it was a lane for it because I knew people will embrace that. It's like who's not going to embrace these big broad topics like their mother and and Jesus and
right.
and things that and
It's the
being in
connection,
yeah, it was just so broad and where he was coming from, and he knew it because he wasn't a part of these smaller niches. He wasn't a drug dealer. He wasn't in a hip hop group. He wasn't from New York. He wasn't ATL, for the South. He wasn't like in these different things. He was a soloist. He was always
right,
a soul, a soul individual and stuff. So that's really yeah, so that's kind of like in a nutshell what I look for is just that dynamic of being able to stand out, but not too much where it's like, you know, who is this guy? And it's just like, it is kind of like it's not even compatible or people don't even understand what you're trying to do. You know what I mean? It got to be some kind of reference point for what you're doing.
he was also fighting a prejudice because back then, we all thought that producers couldn't rap.
Yes.
Remember, if you were one or the other, like, if you were a producer that rapped, the entire industry would kinda look the other way.
Yep.
It's like nobody wanted to give you a chance, and he
Yeah.
was really the one that proved, "Oh, yeah, watch me."
Yeah. Because I guess me being an A&R, I kind of looked at it from the other side of having to find all of these beats for this rapper that's great. And then I
Yeah,
got this guy who could really just do everything on his own, to be honest. You know what I'm saying? He
yeah,
might need a
just
few
wind him
people to
up and
help
he
him
goes.
lyrically and stuff like that, but that's kind of like a good thing that a Twister said recently about you got to fear a rapper who could rap but still get people to help him. You know what I'm saying? It's a level of where he want to go.
Right.
It's beyond the ego because the ego will stop you from doing that. And
Yes, it will.
then, and he, as much as that seemed like the main thing about him is the ego, but when it comes to the creation of something, the art always come first. Like he
Yeah.
will put he spend all his money on the art. He will give everybody writers credit. Like nobody never say bad things about him creatively from working with him. You know what I mean? Even the people that wrote songs for him, they all living good lives because they was taken care of publishing wise. They was taken
Yeah.
care of as much as you could with the samples and as many writers there is. But I remember one time he just split it with everybody that was in the room when the song was being made.
Oh, that's awesome. And that's rare. That's rare.
Yeah, he was
Yeah.
like, everybody was giving information. He was like, whoever was there, just put everybody on it. You know what I'm saying? He just couldn't go
Just
through,
put it.
you did
Just
that,
in
you
the
did
middle.
that, you did that, or just saying, give it all to me. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? He just was
Which is
like,
what most
okay,
people do.
what most people would do. They would just be like,
Yeah.
and most people won't even budge. They would just be like, okay, cool, you're right. I only did a little bit. You know what I'm saying? They won't even expect nothing, to be honest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
True.
hmm
True.
Yeah.
What makes a great artist on the business side?
Okay. Now we go from Kanye to Jay.
I love you so much. Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, because from day one, it always was a balance with Jay with the business and what it was, and just looking at. I think the difference is looking at the whole thing versus looking at this song or this album. You know what I'm saying? Like I think to be a good business wise as an artist, you have to have a whole idea of what you're trying to accomplish. You know what I mean?
Mm,
Financially, to where it's like because the early deals you make, which you the leverage you're trying to grow, all of these things is gonna matter. But if you creatively, if that's your bar, the business is not gonna matter. It might take care of itself probably, but it's not gonna be the thing. It's not gonna be like, okay, let's do another video. Let's do this album over. Let's scratch this album and do another album. Like those things ain't gonna come from somebody going the business route. They're gonna position. It's gonna be more positioning, leveraging, this is the right time to come out. This is the right single to put out. You know what I mean? Like these things, which you still have to balance that because you can't be as direct, you know what I'm saying, with these things. Because then people will get, you want to keep some mystique and keep them on their toes and keep them into you as an artist still. You can't just go straight
right.
into being a full on businessman, you know what I'm saying? But it's just being
Right.
a creator who's like well aware of the business point. And I think when it comes to, you have to be around it a little more or have, those people who've been around it that could really see where you're going. Because I think it's nearly impossible for artists to like solo engineer the business, not to say correctly, because somebody could just have certain beliefs that just fit good with business. They could just be like,
Right.
hey, I only want to do a deal like this. You know what I mean? Like say for instance, like a baby, for instance.
Hmm.
He just have ways that he goes about everything. And that works in business in certain ways. You know what I'm saying? It
Yeah.
works for him for
It
the sake.
certainly works for him. Yeah.
Yeah, it works for him. And it's not like he's constantly trying to reinvent himself or reading or doing these things to be a better business person. It's like, nope, this works. I'm gonna keep it this
I'm gonna
way.
keep doing it. Yeah.
Exactly. And then there's other people like Jay who would see, let's do something with the phone. Let's do something with the Super Bowl. Let's move around. Let's find a different way to put a record out. Let's tour with Eminem.
Exactly.
Let's tour with Mary. Let's tour with my wife. Let's tour. You know what I'm saying? He's not gonna just be like, I'm just gonna go out there every year and show people I'm the
And keep
greatest
doing the same
performer
thing.
and keep doing the same thing. It's like, nope, I gotta
Yeah.
do this now. I gotta move the bar. I gotta do this. Cause he's thinking of the big picture and legacy, which I think goes into the business because you're protecting
It
your
does.
brand. People want to work with you because you know what I mean, you're professional. And to me, I feel like there's nobody more professional than Jay. I don't think there's an artist that you could say, you know what I'm saying? It's not like probably Eminem. Like him and Eminem being beyond being talented, their professionalism is a lot of why they're as big and as rich as they are,
Mm,
because they could be talented and care about being creative, and just care about whatever that is, and not show up on time, fall into other things, and really
not
build the
treat it
bad
like a business.
exactly build the bad name on touring and stuff like that. When I
Yeah,
started with Wayne, we had to build all that back up. We had to build up the touring thing back up. We had to build this
yes,
back, things like that, and then it will still be things he just not even thinking of doing. You know what I'm saying? It's just not even on his radar. But where Jay and certain people who treat it as a business better, or are better artists as a business, to answer your question, I think they have there's a professional maturity that I think
mm,
comes with it, that
mhm,
sometimes goes against hip hop. As far as
right,
creatively, like, you have to be in the sort of position of these guys to be that respected. So when they step away and being like, okay, I'm not trying to keep up with this guy with cars. I'm not trying to buy a bigger house than Ross. I'm not, you know what I'm saying? I'm not trying to do these things, but best believe if you see my house is bigger than, what I'm saying? It's bigger than
right,
everybody's houses and
right,
stuff like that. So he's thinking about it in that way. Like, how do I build the right type of business that makes sense for me with the way? Because he's his own entity. He's not like
yeah,
signed to anybody. When he come out, he's coming out like a movie. Like, just
yes,
do a deal with a production company. Who should I go? Who's going to distribute this film? And he's a director like a Quentin Tarantino. Like, when he come out, and that's what he want to do, and nobody's going to question anything on the project, and the splits and everything and all of that stuff is going to be heavily in his favor. You know what I mean,
yeah,
from day one, and
and
that
done right.
yeah, and that was that time when it was a decision to make where I could do it on my own and get way more. Like, when they really tried to do it early, even though they had to do it out of necessity because a lot of people wasn't just throwing money at them, but that always was the way Jay was into. He just come from that background. And 50 Cent is another guy you can look at as a good business person and
Yes,
in music. And I think
and they're
50,
both hustlers.
yeah, and professional. Where it's like, and I always say that too. You're right, because it's like it's a certain level of Jeezy. It's a certain level of what they dealt with in the streets. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm,
And this being like such a, like, you had two hands behind your back and now you got both your hands. You know what I'm saying? It's like
right,
such a level of thing. Like, I'm not gonna mess this up. I'm not like, I know how hard it is
exactly.
to
There's an
get a dollar.
appreciation.
Exactly. But when you're turning an album and they give you a lot of money every time you turn in an album, that's where your whole thing gonna kind of come from. You know what I mean? That's where your whole reward and everything is gonna come from. But if your reward comes from being on time, turning in the album under budget, because you're gonna be able to keep the rest of the money, because you're gonna be able to recoup. People who's thinking about recoup, we don't recoup. They want to spend more money on videos. They're like, no, let's keep the video here. Let's do the album in my house. Let's do this. They starting to think of things in that way.
From
And
a
the ones that
business
get it,
perspective.
yeah, they have a real vision for what they want to do, whether it's Tyler, whether it's a lot of other people. Like, it's a grand vision. And I think, like, having that is important to be a good artist on the business side, is to, like, have an idea where you're trying to go, so you can at least start making the right decisions. Because if you're just out here album to album, that album didn't do good, so now you're just reacting. You're
Right.
just reacting. Okay, I gotta make a better album. I know they need more. They need this. They need more of that. They need more of this. And now they doing what they want to
Chase
do with you. Yeah. Yep.
instead of building it, you're chasing it.
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's proactive. You wanna be proactive instead of reactive.
Mm-hmm.
I love that.
Yep.
So what is the you've managed like the best of the best, right? So
Mm-hmm.
what is the key to building a successful career as a manager? You just kind of talked about
Right.
what it takes to build a successful career as an artist. So as a manager,
Mm-hmm.
what does it
I
take?
think it takes G. Robeson. No, just no. It takes
Right?
partners for sure. It takes a team.
Yeah.
I think that
G's amazing.
yeah,
You
it
picked
takes
a
a
great one.
team. Yep. It takes a team. It takes knowing your weaknesses and bringing in people that have strengths and your weaknesses, like where they can fill
Right,
the
to balance you
void
out.
and y'all are compatible and stuff like that. Whether it's just because at first we would just do, we would never be at the same place. We would just be like covering as much ground as possible. And then it was like, okay, I do the A to J, and you go K to Z, whatever. You know what I'm saying? And then it was like that type of thing. And then later on, it became separate because I want to constantly do the new stuff. I want to constantly work with new artists. And the fact that we built up a few artists to the bigger scale, that's what he kind of became accustomed to.
Right. I'm
Dealing with
more like
the
you.
dealing with the superstars. And I'm kind of like,
I like the new. I like building them
yeah,
as opposed
exactly. So
to
I'm working with younger
yeah,
guys. I'm working with Griselda, Earl Sweatshirts, and just
I love
younger
it.
people and stuff like that. And action, just being around these kids. That's the energy I like. And
Same.
he's dealing with superstars, people who I couldn't even be
Right.
around 2 days in a row, just because of
Right.
just the energy is just too much for me, and the aggressiveness of their careers. It's just it's just
It's also a different mindset. Like when you're building somebody from scratch, it's like you're making the phone calls. When
yeah,
somebody's a superstar, it's like you're receiving the phone calls.
100%.
You're not building. You're not necessarily building what comes next. You're just
Hmm.
taking the best opportunity that's
Yeah,
presented. And for
yeah,
me, that's not fun anymore.
yeah. It's not. Yep, yeah. So that's never been my thing. But I think that
Mm,
if you're gonna have successful artists, that's the part gonna come. So you got to have some people ready for
yes.
that. You got to have the right team, assistants. You could do a lot of things nowadays. Nowadays, I think it's more manageable with so much tools you have. 'Cause even
Hmm.
as I dabble in certain things or think about how would I do it, I was like, that I would have all these tools, these notions, and this disco, all these different things that's
Yeah.
just easy to just
Makes
like
it so much easier.
make communication easier. Here's the templates, here's the
Yep.
ideas, like really giving them the information. Because if you think about a label, rarely do you speak to your CEO and really like, hey, this is what you do. Nobody do no onboarding in the music industry. It's just like
Right.
we just start,
Right. We
So
wing it.
we wing it. You know what I'm saying? You might go to the studio, they just want a session. They want a PO to go to the session. Can
Yeah.
I go to the studio? Can I go to the studio? And that's that. But now, like for instance, the credits, they'll be done day one. It wouldn't be
Yeah.
no, it'll be right in, boop, 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 right? I'll
Yep.
be everything. Oh, we using these songs? Take this. Here you go. Here's those songs. Drag them over there. Stuff like that. Where then it was more manual. You have to wait for stuff to happen, retrack things. What studio we did that at? Okay, good. What I'm saying? So it was like
Right. It
you
was
know,
forensic. You had to chase the information.
100%. Yeah. So now I look at it where you could do things on your own as well, because if you able to use tools and figure these things out and do that
Yes.
type of thing, what I mean, that could also help you in your weak spots. Like you could be,
Yeah.
not good with communication, and you could have a AI email things and replying back to people. You could have, what
Absolutely.
I'm saying. So it's like I've been really into that lately, just seeing how these things. I don't even think they really even touch the music industry yet, to be honest. Like a lot of
No.
the tools that's in other areas that's making
Agreed.
their work easier. It's like it haven't even touched us. We just starting to get into it. Like, 'cause I use Notion and I never seen no template. I seen one person create a template for it that was focused on music, and I was
Yeah.
like, that's crazy. Like, as easy as this thing is, like the
So
perfect
easy.
thing for it. Like, you could be having songs, you could build your whole world,
Your whole
a whole
world in there.
artist profile. Here's all the
Yes.
information. Here's all the metadata. Here's the
Yep.
audio. So I feel like those things it's easier if just through technology. But to answer the question on the management thing, I think it definitely comes with the team and really growing with it. Like, because I think it's definitely a ceiling. I feel because at that once you get past a certain amount of artists, you're a management company, and then you're trying to sell the other
And then
management
it's different.
company. You scale
Yeah.
it, and you're just trying to get overhead. I mean, not overhead, but you're just trying to get the bottom line bigger to
Correct.
that point. And it's like, hey, let's get this label, let's get that person, and that never made sense to
And
me.
me either. It's like growing a
Yeah,
business instead of growing a career, like for artists. All of a
yeah,
sudden, you're building like Maverick, which you were
exactly.
part of. Yeah.
Yeah, actually, that's when I kind of left. I think around that time
You
because it
did?
didn't make sense. Because it was like if I'm worth 20, you worth 20, and we sell it for 40. What's the big deal? We sold it. We both got 20. We both got what we was worth. So
Yeah.
everybody get what they worth no matter what. So it's like, why am we bundling this up to make you look better, to make it look better on the press? Be like, oh, they sold this company for $1 billion, and oh, we got the 20 million we was worth when we came in. But
Exactly.
to me, and that's just extra pressure, extra. Oh, this guy's rich now. This guy is this. So I'd rather be doing it more boutique, have a certain amount of artists
Me
because
too.
there's only so many artists that could be broken. Let's just keep it, what I'm saying, for real,
Yeah.
and to really have rosters in the double digits, unless you're going into different genres and stuff like that. To me, is just I don't see how they could be receiving the right attention.
Right.
Yeah, so I think just that balance of having the right amount of people on your team that could really fulfill the job because it could go. Who knows? It could be tomorrow. It could just take off. So you want to be,
Right.
and then when that happens, then that's when the sharks come and the bigger companies,
Yes.
and then you almost got to give into it at certain points because it's like, hey, they're going to just take this guy from me if
They
I
could
don't
just take
if I
exactly.
don't
You don't
go
get
in and do a
involved.
deal with this guy, these
Yeah.
companies, or this booker and stuff like that. So yeah, so I think that's why having things in order early, being prepared for that is
Yes.
important. 'Cause that's what we always did. We always kind of went at an artist with an idea of who would be their point person. Do we have that person in house, or do we got to find that person? Stuff like that versus just, oh, this is a great artist, new name. Let's go, let's do it, let's do it, let's do it, and then who's gonna do it? Who's gonna handle it? Who's gonna be the day to day? I'm doing this. I'm
Right.
doing
Who's gonna
this.
do this?
I got
Yeah.
this. I can't do that too. You know what I'm saying? Then it becomes that type of thing, but it just made so much sense that you couldn't turn it away. You couldn't say, no, we don't want
Right.
to manage Future. Like we managed Future real early, but it wasn't the right time. We didn't have the attention. We didn't have the synergy that we
Infrastructure.
needed at that time. Yep, exactly. So, but for him, it made sense somewhere else. You know what I mean? And it worked.
And it
Hmm.
worked for him. You know
Yep.
what I loved about you guys, and I'm saying this as an outsider looking in, but I always felt like you made decisions that were best for your clients. You didn't make decisions based on how much money you could make. And I think that's really what has made you such a great manager.
Yeah, yeah. That's definitely. I agree with you there. It was. Yeah, I think that comes from. Yeah, because I think you need that level of like me and G is like real. We the same. We like real humble people. We don't need a lot. I don't drive a car. He barely, what I mean, he barely uses a cell phone. You know what I'm saying? So it's like we
Right.
still have certain quirks about us, and we kind of was, you know, just picked and really humbled to be in the position we was in. So when it came to it, it was always the artist first. That was always the thing. Like it was never like, hey, we gotta get this because it was always we always felt we would get ours. You know what I mean? We felt that it would come and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
let's just deal with.
And it did. It did
Yeah,
come.
it did,
Yeah.
100%. Because it was like I'd rather have no blemishes on my record as far
Same.
as anybody who say I did something to them or I did this, I did
Same.
that. Because I feel like I'd rather just do a good deal all the way through rather than do something dirty and they find out after the first album and then they gone. And now, you
And you
know,
did all the work for nothing.
I did all the work for nothing, but I was just
Right.
being too greedy as well. So if I was just like, if I'd have just kept what up, which still would have been enough money. That's why I never understood certain artists, certain labels who was making that big of a split have
Same.
have an issue with paying
Same.
artists. I was like, this don't make no sense. Like
This doesn't make any
I had
sense. Like,
Kanye on a production deal, and we was, and we was still being fair to where everybody say you never signed a production deal, but that's the only leverage we had at the time. But we outlived it, and we
yes.
all the way to now.
Yes.
So it was like, so now that production deal years later makes a lot of sense just to get that 2, 3, 4 points, whatever, just come in, every quarter or whatever, versus we doing the deal with him that would have made him want to get out of it as soon as he had
Exactly.
the opportunity.
Exactly.
But his loyalty, us being fair, it just kept us on board for eight
Yes.
albums, and that's
It's amazing.
usually unheard of. You know what I mean?
It's
Usually,
unheard of.
artist managers don't last 8 albums and stuff like that. Like, and I think that also became somewhat of a good formula for other managers and people to utilize down the line. Because when we started, it was just probably Lighty. Like Chris Lighty was like only the main people that we looked at as with Violators and a management team and other
Yeah.
people building a company in that way. Because it wasn't like, I mean, of course, Rush, that's how, they started that way with Lior and them. But in that recent time, I guess that's where Chris kind of picked up where they left off that.
He did.
And that's where I feel like we kind of picked up, not so where he left off that, but in a way, you know what I mean, because of the timing of it and also just learning from him and stuff, how to build that team. Because you're going to
Yeah.
have to grow in that way. Unless you just, if you find the one or two, you could settle back. You don't need to do too much if you manage, Travis Scott or The Weeknd or somebody like that,
Exactly.
but then you still probably gonna get so much coming at you that it's gonna be hard to turn down any day.
Yes.
Hmm.
Especially if you're passionate about an artist and
Hmm.
you see somebody that you wanna build from scratch, it's hard to say no
Hard to say
because
no.
you know what you can bring, but you
Yeah.
also know how it feels to build something from scratch.
Yes, exactly. Yep. 100%.
I get that.
You got some pull. You could use some leverage. You got some people to get on the phone. So it's like,
Exactly.
why not use it?
Why not?
Hmm.
Um, as you know, I've always been fond of the indie space, and you've been amazing at working the major route.
Hmm.
Today, looking at all that artists have in front of them, do you like indie versus major? Do you have any feelings about that, or do you feel that each
Um,
situation is
yeah,
different?
I was major by default. I feel because he started indie with Roc-A-Fella and with that
Yeah,
approach, and
and it was hard back then. In
yeah, it
fairness,
was tough.
it
Yeah,
was it was hard.
yeah, because I tried to do indie a couple times, and it was tough. I wanted to do distribution. I wanted to create a distribution company
Mm,
from when I left Atlantic. That was my goal. That's why I moved to Atlanta. I moved to Atlanta, got a warehouse in Metropolitan, started doing stuff. Um, and I got real close with Robert Gillerman from Southwest Distribution,
Southwest Wholesale. Yeah,
Southwest Wholesale, because this is back then. So it was
yes,
like everything was changing. So I'm talking to him about plants and trucks and stuff like that, and like what is to create something. Because I'm thinking, Selecto and what he do. I want to be in that world, and I'm going about it, and then I ended up telling Rick Rubin about it. I told Rick Rubin, hey, I want to create an all hip hop distribution. He's like, I want a Def Jam to be all hip hop and da da da. And we talking and stuff like that. And he's about to go to Columbia, and nobody knew this. And he was like, yo, I'm about to take a job at a record label. I was like, for real? He was like, yeah, I'm going to Columbia, and I want you to come with me and head to Urban, and you could do that over here. So I'm
mm,
like, so that kind of took me off of it because
off
I
of
went
that.
into work
Yep.
with him, and then I didn't have it
Yeah,
all ready to
I
go,
get it.
and then it didn't last. So the next thing you know, I'm kind of back at square one. And then I partners with Fat Beats back then. So I
Mm,
partnered with Fat Beats, like, okay, let me go and partner with them early. So when I get to
right.
another company, I got something. I got this distribution company. This is what I want to do. I want to start this way. And, I'm going to have some things that trickle up to y'all. That's what I'm telling them.
Smart.
And nobody's getting it. Nobody understand. They just keep going back. Who's the first artist? Who you want to start with? Who you want to do this? I was like,
Yeah,
it's a distribution company. It's like there's a bunch of stuff. There's this person, everybody that's kind of big now, like Rock Marcy and this person and that, like stuff that's
yeah.
a lot of Empire and those guys kind of eventually took off with. So
They
it
filled
was
that
always
they filled that lane beautifully.
beautifully, yeah,
Yes.
beautifully, because that's always the sweet spot. That's always the sweet spot from Priority to Asylum to Koch to like that's where not to say the majority of hip hop, but the majority of hip hop that's really relevant in the streets that people are really into. Obviously, it
Yes,
grows, but if you look about like priority when, because that's the type of deals you got to be able to do for these type of people. You know, for
correct.
the Jugs, Dames, D, Rough Rider. You know, these people who have that lock on
Leverage.
this leverage in the streets. They got this, you
Yes,
know,
they have
all.
leverage. They
Yep,
get better deals,
yep.
and they have money in the game. They're putting up their own money
They put up
to
their own
build that
money.
leverage.
Yep. And that was the like that was some of the best times
Yes,
of
that was
the
my
business.
world. That's where I lived. That was
Yes.
100% my world.
That's where I came up in. And I felt it made sense. They wasn't bothering them. And these guys had enough like respect. The respect level was there for all of these guys. Like
Yes,
it was like until they had to basically do something to doubt their respect. You know what I'm saying? But
right.
it was there where they're gonna get the deal they want. They're gonna fight extra. The album that might not sound like the album this label want to put out, they're not gonna even second guess it. This how it sounds. Here you go. Let's go. This is what you want. Let's go. You know, what I'm saying nobody's like you're gonna use this one producer the whole album. Nobody's saying that to
Nobody's
baby. You know
saying
what I'm
that
saying?
because
It's
what
just
they're
like
doing is they're proving that it works.
you're proving that it works. And I think that time it made sense on both fronts. The artist had a little bit of structure.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? Because it was just enough structure with Death Row and Cash Money. The studios was there, the people. So when a younger artist come into that world, they're in line. They on tour, opening it up for a year, features on records, then the album. You know, it's like that sort of rite of passage now to where
The
artists are
development.
just, yeah, they get there right away. It's like, and then now you can't tell them nothing.
Right.
The manager can't tell them nothing. Everybody from that point on,
But they can't sustain it.
they can't sustain it. No, yep.
Right.
Everybody at that point, unless they smart, like you have to be like probably like Ross. Rick Ross is probably the only person who really probably post that era
Mhm.
came out of that and was able to like sustain a career. But he always had that mentality. He learned from those guys. He seen what to do. He wasn't like that removed from it. He
Right.
came up under Ted Lucas and
Yes.
and
He was
um
coachable too.
Tony Draper. Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
Mhm.
So he knew what music side he needed to do. He knew, okay, I need to go to a Def Jam, and I know what that is, and I know how to, say he
And then I'll
really
build my own company over here at Warner.
here Warner,
Like,
and I
he
know how
got
to
it.
work these people because
Yes.
they need me more than Def Jam need me. So he knew that
Right.
he had that idea, and
Right.
okay, I tried with my friends. Let me take it up a step and go after some guys that people already like Wale and Meek, versus the first step of a artist label of just putting your friends on. You know what I'm saying? Then it's the next step
Exactly.
of let me sign somebody else.
Let
That's
me let
good,
let me run this like a business.
Exactly. Yep. You get into that
Yep.
point. Yep. Instead of being a
So
charity.
can that work in 2024? Like, can today's music would this work? This business model still work in 2024?
um, I think it could. I think the person will have to be aggressive as a label going into the world. You know what I mean? Like kind of like with Alamo or like Tom Moskowitz was doing, or certain
Yeah.
labels where they're going after things. They're not just trying to but it's within a world. It's like, okay, this SoundCloud place or this world or that,
Yes.
like finding these things because it's not a regional thing no more.
No,
It's not
it's not.
that. So you're gonna have
It's
to
more
have
digital. It's TikTok. It's SoundCloud. It's
exactly, yeah. So a lot of the labels is kind of like tech focused, so they getting a lot of information, or maybe they just got
correct.
enough money to just take a lot of early chances and stuff. And maybe labels I
Right.
never heard of, and I'm like, wow, he's on this label. They have 20 artists. They have 10 artists, 15 artists, and it's all over the place of that to where I think that could use structure like the other guys from the past. Like, you know what I mean? Like a lot of them, that balance would be good to have that artist structure mixed with this technology.
I
Because it's
agree,
so much
'cause I think it takes
leverage
both.
for the art, for the labels. There's so much leverage, so much information, so much stuff you could do now as your own distributor, as you with just certain type of deals, because everybody's doing these DIY deals as just the artist. But if it was an indie label that had a certain culture that they could utilize along with technology, I think it will really flourish.
It'll
I
be a
think.
win.
I think so. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think so
Because
too. I think it just needs to be, like, even more artist friendly than you or I are, because I think
yeah.
that I think the music business today, like, this generation is just tired of the bullshit. They're tired of
Yeah.
hearing the stories of
Mm-hmm.
artists getting robbed. So they're like,
Yeah.
"Nah, it ain't happening.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
gonna go do what I want. I don't need a major deal. I'm gonna go do what I want."
Yeah.
It's
And then
kind of
that
a
only goes so far. And you can only go so far with that as well because they doing what they want, but they only know so much. They're not really bringing in the
right,
right help. So it's like it's all these companies that's brands, white label, tech. Some is tech service, some is money, some is up and up, some is just scams. But they're all
pure unadulterated scams, yes.
yeah. So I feel like that aspect of it, like too many selling those dreams, like having hundreds of thousands of subscribers is just crazy to me. To think that
Yeah,
people was dealing with that many artists on their platforms and stuff like that, and they're telling all of them they're going to service them. Everybody's going to get on the playlist. You know what I'm saying?
yeah,
Everybody's
yeah,
going to get a
like that's real.
yeah,
Right,
exactly. So it's
right,
like so to me to go back where it is a ceiling. We do have only 12 artists that we're servicing, but we got this technology and we doing it on that level. I think an indie label would be able to be bigger now. It wouldn't have
agreed,
that. It wouldn't have that ceiling that they used to have back in the days. Where it was like to communicate like that dynamic we spoke of earlier. We still had to almost A&R. It was still a level of hey, Leo, let's come listen to Beanie Siegel. You know what I'm saying? Or hey,
right,
we want to sign Kanye. What y'all think? And they're like, oh, you could do it if it don't come over this. If it's under that, cool. We don't have to worry about it. But if we wanted more money, then it would have been let's have a showcase for all the staff at Def Jam. Let's book a SIR or something like that to show people that we should be spending some money on this. But when it's when you're doing it this way, you don't have to go to them the money because you're getting money every month. Your pipeline is different. You're not just being fed the budgets and stuff like that. You have to figure out
right,
a way to be a real business and not a kind of like a exaggerated A&R where you
right,
got a budget
exactly,
and you can do things with your budget, but it's not a business. It's not like rap a lot or something like that.
right,
You know what I'm saying? Like
right.
that's a business. That's his. He got his masters. He got his things. He makes money every year. He spends money every year. He gets
He's
more
got
than he
catalog.
earn. Catalog. So it's like
Mhm.
when I spoke to him about
It's just
music
different.
back then, it was a whole nother thing. And it made sense to me. Because even with Roc-A-Fella, I think we stayed more in the A&R
You did,
joint venture
you
work.
did.
Because we
Yes.
always had to go there for something. We always had to
You're
do, you know what I
always
mean?
funded by the label. Yeah.
Yep. And I
You
think
couldn't
that was,
really do what you wanted. I mean, you could because you had power and
we had
leverage,
power. We had a little
but you
leverage.
didn't have ownership.
Yeah. And then even that had to go through their pipeline with their
Got it.
artists. So, so it wasn't enough room for everything to really get us, they'll sign it and it still won't come out because they know we won't have an opportunity to put it out. Like they know that. They're like, okay,
Right,
cool, let's sign it. We don't want to hear you.
right.
Here's the advance.
Exactly. Here's
And
the
then
advance.
we'll
Shut
figure
up.
out when we open the budget. Yeah. Figure out the budget later. Yeah. So yeah. So I think I think it definitely could work now because of I think the technology and everything falls in that way. But I think that the mindset of everybody is either DIY or blockbuster. And that's not happening no more. It's like
No,
I don't even think we're gonna get those, like we
I don't
used
either.
to. It's just
No,
not
because
conducive.
we can't advertise to everybody anymore.
Nope.
It's all niche now.
We're
There's no
going
way to reach everybody. It would be too
yeah.
expensive.
It's broken into too many pieces. We could never put it back together again.
Fragmented.
It's
Exactly. I
like
call it fragmented. It's my
yeah,
favorite
100%.
expression.
I like to say that as well too. It's
Yep.
definitely like
It's
too
just too
fragmented.
fragmented.
Yeah, because we could get you get on one thing like something as small as Rap City that was going to every city at the same time at the
Millions of people.
millions of
Yes.
people like hearing this record, hearing this artist every day, seeing this person. So those
Yep. You
it
could
kind
get your
of
repetition in.
that's where the household names come from. Now you don't have household names no more. Like
No.
people see Yeet number one, like they're saying who's Yeet. You see people,
Exactly.
it's
Exactly.
like you hearing these things like people can number one, and it's like to where I feel like Travis Scott is probably the last one. I think
Yep, or NBA YoungBoy. Yeah,
if you're a young boy,
agreed,
yeah, yep,
agreed.
in that
Like, that
area where it's
generation
like,
is
yeah,
is it.
yeah, for sure. To where like
Yep,
it penetrates outside of it. To where Travis penetrate outside of it, where it's like you see him walking down the street in All Star game with this guy. NBA
you
players
know
get
who he
happy to
is.
see him and stuff. Yeah, and young boys like that
Yeah,
too, but he just don't go outside. He just don't really. You don't you don't
right,
bathe. You don't get a chance to really embrace it and show
the way he
what
could.
that
True.
look like and stuff. 'Cause if he did that, I'm sure, boo, it would have been next level. But
Exactly.
it shows you what he's doing from like to be that big and not really even come outside is incredible. That
It
just
is.
shows you where we at now. You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah,
you don't have to, we need you on the promo tour. We need you to get this, you know what I'm saying? We need
yeah,
you to create your own mystique, your own storyline, your own everything at this point now. Yeah.
exactly. He's just doing it all from, like, the confines of his home because he's on home confinement.
Yeah,
So he's
yeah.
doing
Not the
he's
full.
doing the
Yeah.
best he can.
hmm and it's showing that that it could work in that way because
Right,
everybody always look at it like, oh, you got to be here, you got to do this. Like the label would just want to run you around. Oh, BET Awards, you got to be at this place, you got to do that. You got to get on Flex, you got to be here, you got to do the on the radar, you got to get on the porch, you got to get it. So all these things you got to do, and he's just like, nah, it's the same people. These are the same people. It's not no. We don't have different platform. Like you get on late night television, okay, that's different. You know what I mean? But everything else is like it's the same people. It's just like, maybe a little smaller niche of that. But if you got the whole hip hop as a household name, you checked all the boxes. You reached that pinnacle once
at
you get
Pinnacle.
that household name. Because it's like you can't take it away. You
Right,
can't take Nelly away. You can't take John.
right.
That's what the verses was about. These guys with household names still coming outside. To where
Exactly.
yep. And that kind of goes back to the early thing we spoke about of what I'm into is like really them becoming household names. I always remember that like with T.I. and Jay and being with them so early, to where it was like nobody knows he is. We just walking down the street. He's dropping me off in my house. He's at my son's baby shower, like just baby shower and stuff. So it's like he's just doing regular stuff, coming to my game,
Right.
you know what I'm saying, and stuff like that. So to the point where it was like, oh, we can't do that no more. Okay, kid, we can't do this. We gotta. Oh, it's a bodyguard now. Okay, two. Okay,
Yeah,
cool.
it's
Driver now.
security
Okay,
issues
cool.
now.
Yeah, exactly. It's like you ain't driving no more. Okay, cool. So it was like you see to go through from
The levels.
from being unheard on a mixtape to being a billionaire. It's like saying to like I went with
It's a
him to Stretch
blessing.
Armstrong when he went up to Stretch Armstrong to in Barbito when he went there to college radio. I went to college
Yes,
radio and stuff because I was the
yes,
guy who was doing college radio at the time. So it was like, hey, I see
exactly.
the guys and stuff, and that was like a dream for me just to go into Stretch and Barbito because I listened to them so much.
Me too.
But that's the stage of where we coming from. We coming from the point where be like a step above talent shows and a step
Yeah,
above, what I'm saying, of that era of being
exactly.
an artist, like right, because that's what local radio is and mix show and battle the beats and stuff like that. Like we was
Yes.
fighting, I was writing the Source magazine telling them they should cover Jay-Z. I was writing
That's
letters like
so
as
funny.
editorial from my office.
Yeah,
Hey, why you
yeah.
don't cover Jay Z? And they're
Why don't you
trying to
cover
write another
AJC?
one.
Yeah,
They're trying to write another one. Hey, have you ever heard of Jay Z? I don't think it's just like literally writing letters to them, telling them they should put him in their
they should
magazine.
check him out.
Yeah,
That's
like
so
check him
funny.
out. What are y'all doing? To him being on the cover. You know what I mean? Being on to being probably on as many covers as anybody.
As anybody, exactly.
Mhm. Yeah.
So, how do you balance work and family life?
That's a good question.
It's hard. And
It's
and I'm
very
somebody
hard.
who's I've never conquered that. Like
hmm
I've never made it past 7 years in a relationship. I never had kids. I
Right.
can't do it. I can't seem to balance work
Yeah.
and life. I just wanna work. Like, work
Yeah.
is life.
Yeah.
And I love
I'm
it. I'm not
the same
complaining.
way. Yeah, I'm the same way. I don't think I really conquered that yet. And the good thing, I guess, is my family is all in the music industry, just about. So
Mm,
I got a big brother in the music industry. I got my brother Shalik, he's in the music industry. My little brother Maul from Rory and Maul podcast, he's in the music industry.
that's awesome.
And my son is in the music industry. His mother Erica is in the music
In
industry.
music industry, yep.
So it's like, so the understanding is
Everybody
there. Yeah, everybody have understanding. My grandfather was in the music industry, so he was
Oh, I didn't know that. What did he
yeah,
do?
he was a singer. He was in a group called the Harp Tones. He was
That's cool.
he was a doo-wop singer and stuff. Yeah.
And
He
who's
was
your older brother? Your older brother was in the music industry too.
Biggs.
I love him.
Yep. Yeah. Biggs, my older brother.
Love
Yep.
him.
Yeah. So yeah, so
Really
everybody's
good.
kind of been around it, seen it from an early stage, and that kind of keeps us in close proximities. So
Mhm.
so a lot of people out my family outside of that circle it's become a lot more difficult and stuff. But for me, I never really fully engulfed myself in the music industry, I like to say. There's always parts of it I'm not involved in as far as extracurricular awards, certain things. So I'm kind of always, it don't usually take up all of my time like that.
Gotcha.
I'm
That's
more like
good.
studio stuff that I have to be. So I kind of became more, how you say, just with more intention, like, as far as the things that I'm involved in or even showing up to. So I don't really
Right.
do a lot of stuff. So it's always cool for me. I'm not like super busy. And even when I do management stuff and things of that nature, I always have a team or partners and stuff like that. So I never try to be that person. I never want to be like that the first call on the phone or the person that's like, they got to call in the middle of the night to do this or do that. So I always try to make sure I give them an assistant, be the point person, have somebody else that could deal with that type of stuff
I
as
can deal with
well.
that. Yeah.
Yeah. So
That's
I kind
smart.
of, I think that's the best way is just having like a good enough team that could deal with things to where when you're not, everything don't have to be you. You don't have to like
Right.
touch everything. If you had a session, everything goes wrong. So it was like that type of thing where at first with Jay, I just never wanted to leave him. It was just like I was with him every day. And it was just a thing of it was just me and him. And so much things had to happen in the studio at that time that I had to kind of deal with that, deal with the engineer, deal with the assistant or the food. You know what I mean? Do these
Mhm.
different things that nowadays is just Uber Eats and somebody just go pull up. The studios is simpler now. It's just like, okay,
Way
cool.
simpler.
Engineer just pull up. Somebody got, you good? You there? Okay, cool. Maybe they need to get in. Somebody let them in and they good. And that's, so it's just a lot of simpler on that front where you don't have to be with them as much. You got to make sure they're doing what they're doing. You checking in. It's not just going off the rails. You still, keeping a certain level of communication because nobody really want to be told what to do all the time. So it's a
True.
level of stepping in, keeping your distance, but also being close enough to let them know you still care about this. You're not just sign them and you never show up, and then it's just like
Exactly.
you
You
at this
still give
party,
a
you
shit.
that party. They only see you at the parties. You know what I'm saying? At the
Right.
events and stuff like that. You show up for the pictures and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
I might not show up for the pictures, but I'll be out all
I'm the
other
same way. Yeah. I'm not going to the award shows. I'm not showing up to the parties. Record
hmm
release party, good. Let me know how it goes.
Yeah, yeah. I'm like NBA old boy.
That's funny. That's really funny. So what do you wanna be remembered for?
It's a good question. I don't think I've I don't think I've done that yet. I think like what I want to be remembered for is like things that I want to do moving forward. As far as a lot of things we spoke about, I think I have like a lot of information, a lot of things
You
that
do.
help people with that I haven't yet really done yet. Whether it's writing or podcasting or books, I don't know what platform, teaching. So I want to do something more in that vein because I'm not like as into like, okay, chasing it, finding the next person or doing that. That's not what I'm into. So stuff that I want to definitely still want to conquer on the label side with the conversation we had of it feeling like it's still a window there. It's still something missing there. I think for hip hop labels, for like what used to be delivered, what could be delivered now, and I think
Agreed.
that's an area that I want to get into, but with more of a artist friendly approach, where it's like, hey, because you have the ability to do that, you have the ability to give artist friendly deals now because of
Yes.
the deals you're getting from distributors, the deals you're getting. You can set up your own digital distribution with a white label service in no time.
Yep.
So there's so much things you could do now that I'm seeing that I'm want to kind of connect the dots and start to bring people towards. And it's kind of like similar to, I guess it's more into like more towards like what you do in a way, kind of like balancing out the two, where it's like, okay, let me start to share some of this stuff and that from the past, but also this new things I'm getting into and these new tools that I feel need to be utilized on the AI side,
Yeah.
on the three side, on the a
On
lot
the
of these
tech
things.
side.
People
Yep.
tech side is so advanced, and I think for artists, it's if they understood it and they knew how to like set up a cool little system, it's like they could almost be doing things on their own. It's so I
Yes,
mean,
they
it's such,
could.
yeah. So that part of it, I want to explore more and learn more, but also start to bring that back to people. So I feel like it's just a full circle of starting independent, working with a new label, and just everything that I learned throughout that. I feel is valuable now because those guys that we mentioned, executive wise, is people that I studied close, was a part of most of them, or even just admired from afar. But
Right.
those things is not like exclusive to any of those guys. It's just things that they did. It's just actions was taken, stuff was done. It don't have to be done the same way. It's not like, but the core of what it was, to where you could see what made Death Row work without the bullshit, without the extra
Right.
stuff,
Without being death row.
without
Yes.
being Death Row, but you also could see the discipline and the structure that was needed for that.
Yes.
To have that, having your
Yes.
own
And the
studio.
consistency of recording, because you
Yeah,
have that same work ethic.
yeah,
Your
having
work
your own
ethic is
studio, having
incredible
your
in
own
the studio.
producers, having being in house, being like really taking that approach that he was taking. It worked all the time. Like, and that's why I
All
had to get
day.
Kanye and Just, because I was like, they got Dre and this person, and they got Beats by the Pound, and they got Manny, and they got Swiss and Grease, and we got, and I'm just running around trying to find everybody. I remember calling Death Row trying to get a beat from Daz.
Yeah.
Call like the front, like the number
The
out
front
of,
desk.
yeah.
"Hi,
And
this
they
is hip
told
hop.
me,
I need a beat."
yeah, I think they was running a scam on me.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, because they were just like, "Oh yeah, that's like 90,000," and the guy at the front desk told me 90,000.
That's so funny.
Like
They
I got a
absolutely
price.
didn't think it was you. They
Yeah, I was seeing.
absolutely did not really think that was you calling.
Yeah, because they was like, "Who?" And they was like, "Okay, cool. Yeah, Dad charged 90,000." I was like, "Damn." I was like, I was just like trying to test the waters. You know what I'm saying? Seeing like,
Exactly.
okay, trying to
Exactly.
expand
That's
out.
so
See,
funny.
yeah. I figure I asked for him and not Dre. You know what I mean? Like I just be
Exactly.
like, I should
That's
have went
too
to Sam
funny.
Snead. I should have kept going. I should have
You
been
should
like,
have Sam Feed.
that's why I
Well,
ended up
brother.
working with too. He ended up. That's why I ended up working with him right after that too, which is
Oh, I
funny.
love that.
Yeah. Hmm.
He's a good dude. I like him. I like Butter. I like all the guys that came up under Dre. I think
Yeah.
they're so
Yeah.
talented.
Mel. Yeah. Yeah. No, but yeah,
That's
definitely. I want to. Yeah, just get more into that part of it. I feel like I want to start sharing stuff, start teaching, and figuring out ways
give
to
back.
get back. Yep. Yeah. So I want that to be what I'm known for and what I can help do for hip hop on that front.
Yeah.
Hmm.
I love that.
Yep.
I love that.
Definitely. That's where I'm at.
So
Just
you did something really cool that I want to thank you for publicly.
mhm,
In my career, like I've done some really cool shit,
mhm,
and I've helped build a lot of superstars. And getting credit was always difficult. I don't know why. Maybe it's because I wasn't vocal and stood up and say I did this or I did that.
mhm.
But I was going through it. I was actually going through it over Eminem and Interscope because they just didn't give me any credit for that whatsoever, and
Right.
I was crushed, you
Mhm,
know. And I opened Billboard magazine. I was reading an article, an interview with you actually,
mhm,
and you said that yeah, I found Kanye because Wendy Day from Rap Coalition brought me out to Chicago, and that's where I met him, and I had no idea.
mhm.
And when I read that, I was so touched, and I'm like, "Damn, this is, like, such a small thing." And
Yeah.
you were like, "I love her for that, and I just wanna say that, that's what she brought to the table," and I'm like, "Man, it's such a small, like, tiny piece of your
Mhm.
pie," and you had
Yeah.
no problem saying that. I'm like, "Man, I love him for that." So thank you. Thank you
Nah,
for that.
it was influential, man, and it also just the stuff you did
I had
after
no
that,
clue.
and the stuff you did. I always was reading your stuff. Like I used to follow the page and sometimes download it and copy and paste it and stuff because
I love that.
it wasn't nothing like that out there. It wasn't nobody giving that type of information
Nobody was giving information.
at all. So it was like I was like
Thank you.
thirsty for that, and that that was during the
I
time when
love
I kind
it.
of was trying to do the independent stuff as well. So I was like,
That was
okay,
my lane.
let me
That
get
was my
into it,
world.
let me figure
Still
it out.
is.
Stuff, yeah.
Still doing it. Yep.
Nah, that's beautiful. Yep.
Yep.
Nah,
My whole goal is to just help artists make money with their music. That's all I do all day,
nah,
every day, and it's
I'm the
awesome.
same way. I feel
It's
the same way.
awesome.
Yep. Just give them that to release them handcuffs, like to
Yeah.
creatively.
Just show them how. That's
Yeah.
all they need
Yeah.
to show them once, and
Exactly.
they'll
Hmm.
if you teach them how to fish, they can feed themselves for life,
Yeah.
and their
100%.
family, and their children's children. You already know. I'm preaching to the choir. Is there anything that I didn't ask you that I should have? Is there anything you
um.
wanna talk about that I should have brought up?
Um. No, I think you covered it most. Everything else that's coming is kind of like still somewhat new, but definitely gonna be
Is there
making
anything that
more
you're
stuff.
doing that you wanna plug? Because I would love for you to have the opportunity to
Hmm.
obviously, I'm gonna put all your socials so that people can follow you.
Gotcha. Yeah, now I'm doing. Yeah, I have a new company I started, Seneca Village Recordings, SVR. So that's kind of like my boutique label. I'm starting to produce more, so I'm making music now
That's
and got like
exciting.
a nice little team of stuff. So yeah, that's gonna kind of be like me fully unfiltered doing the stuff I like to do with the people I like
I
to do
love
it with.
it. I
So
love it.
and I feel like that's a part of the technology allowing me to do that now. To where it's
Yes,
like I could go in and have like a vision of how I want my label to be, what I want to go after, the type of music,
I love it.
and and be able to do deals with people that make sense. Not
Yes,
because being the label part always the reason why I didn't do it before was a lot just because of the deals structure of what I
same.
had to do to make money
To make
as a
money.
label and what I had to, it just I
Yes,
always
I
felt like
wasn't willing to do it.
somebody's gonna get effed in the head. And I don't want to like it just feels that way, like just the structure of me
Same.
having to get money from a third party to give to this person to be a part of to maybe get wiped out the picture sooner or later and stuff. And and then I will almost have to like so that's why when people do deals in a way, I understand it sometimes as far as certain labels when they're protecting themselves, when they're kind of like
I
early
get it.
on, because
They're taking a
sometimes like
risk.
early on, it's like the expectations is not there. But if you take it there and then you don't fix it and you keep it the way it was, then that's a problem. You know what I'm saying? Like I can
Agreed.
understand somebody like Baby doing a deal like he did out the gate because he was spending all the money, he was
But
doing everything
renegotiate.
exactly. But now that we're here, let's start doing this now and stuff like that. So
Yes,
I think I could start with good stuff now. You can start with straight up deals now
you
and
can.
still make money yourself, and they can make and everybody could
Everybody eats.
benefit from it. And I
Yes.
think that's that's where that kind of got me back into it. I just felt like, okay, this make
Good.
more sense as a place for me now where I could do the music I want to do and not have to like work with one artist every now and then, consulting for them or co-managing. Like I worked with Westside Gun and Benny the Butcher
I love
uh,
Benny.
recently with my partner Chase Infinite. He's like been doing most of the stuff. We've been working together because we're like in the same dynamic of me and G, but our taste is more aligned in the new artist method. So we both
Yes,
feel that
yes.
way about new artists. Like when he was working with ASAP Rocky, I was with him from that point. So it was like
Oh,
always
wow.
a
Yeah,
thing from there. So it's like those artists I was around early, but I just wasn't in a position to sign them right away. Or my management team was kind of like thinking established artists when I was thinking new
right.
artists.
You were thinking new
So,
artist. Yeah,
yeah, so
I
the
get it.
business thing it didn't make sense because and it didn't make sense for them neither. So it was like, and I noticed that when I went to major labels, it didn't make sense to them neither. When I'm going there talking to artists about Doom and different new artists, and they like, who? Why? They only sold this much. I'm like,
Right,
it only sold this much. They was like,
right.
we still don't want to do it. It was like albums that had big upsides, and it just didn't make sense to them. They were like, no, I don't know.
Yeah.
I can't. We
Not
can't do
everybody
it.
has long-term vision. A lot of people just have short-term vision.
Yeah, yeah,
They just
and that's
wanna hit the
yeah,
quick lick.
that's what the labels is for. That's their job. That's what they
That is
set
their
up
job.
for. That's they got quarterly reports. They got they got
They got
boards.
investors. They've got
They got investors.
yeah,
So I don't blame them.
they've
I
got
kind of look at it.
stockholders.
Yeah, like once you get into that, you play that game. That's what it is. You got to know the game you're playing. But the music industry is bigger than that. It's a
Yes, it
independent
is.
thing. Keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger.
Yes, it
I
is.
remember it used to be like real small. It used to be like a little thing. Now
Remember?
it's like
Yeah,
it's
now
almost
it's
like
it's
it's
yep,
almost like a chunk. It's almost like a.
yep. It's like
I'm like,
40%
ooh, yeah. It's like
and growing. Yep,
growing. Yep.
that's real.
So I love seeing that.
Me too.
Happy.
Thank
Yep.
you so much for talking to
No
me
problem.
today.
Thank
This
you.
made me so happy.
Yeah, no, this was great. Great. We finally got a chance to kick it.
I love it.